am so excited for you guys to join us for this session, and even more excited about the content that we're going to share today. I'm Bianca Bradford, and I lead Meta's North America agency team. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to click too. Hold on, let me get all the things. So for this panel, we're going to go super deep into Reels and unpack everything that you need to know, including creative, measurement, and so much more. And helping me do that are two fantastic industry partners for us. So Michelle Nagel is Senior Marketing Manager of Molson Coors for Miller Lite. And Rory, McClanahan, is Group Strategy Lead at Volt, Molson Coors in-house creative agency. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we dive in, why don't you both tell us a little bit about your roles, your responsibilities, and how you both partner at Miller Lite. Michelle, I'll start with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bianca. We're so excited to be here, and thank you for everyone who came to see us. I know it's late in the day, so we appreciate you coming down to the lower level and hanging out with us in the creative suite. That sounds right. So my name is Michelle Nagel. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager at Molson Coors. I've been with the company for a long time, but my latest stint has been on Miller Lite. And our team works on all of what we call our equity comm, so everything based like truly in the brand. So from strategy to our visual world of our brand ID, and then everything from ATL comm, so all the above the line comm, so TV, out of home, radio, and then social, which we're gonna talk about today. So you'll hear from me a lot, so I'll kick it over to Rory, who we work with very closely in the building.
Yeah, Rory McClanahan. So I lead the strategy team for Volt, which is the in-house creative agency at Molson Coors. So I work across kind of the whole portfolio of brands, like Miller Lite is my favorite, obviously.
That's right.
We're talking about today.
Right.
And our role is really to take all those brand fundamentals and business goals and turn them into kind of really like relatable, digestible messaging for all of our consumers.
And sorry, I jumped ahead. I'm too eager with this clicker here. So obviously this panel is all about Reels, but first I'm gonna ask you guys to just set us up for how you approach your social strategy at Miller Lite.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about like social strategy overall, and then Rory can tackle how we think about organic and Reels. But we've been partnering with your team at Meta for several years to make sure that we are, yes, I know, I see some of you out there, to make sure that like what we're doing is connecting with our consumers and also like being really effective, because like at the end of the day, we're here to drive our business forward, and social is a great space to do that. So we can all talk about best practices. We all have a lot, but I think one of the things for our brand, from Miller Lite, is we found success in from a paid perspective of like making sure we have like two really hardworking assets out there. That one always drives home our functional benefit of great taste, 96 calories, because nothing is better than when it tastes like Miller Time. And then more of a lifestyle kind of occasion-based social asset that leans into what our drinkers really care about for the moment. So over the summer we had a grilling asset, and right now we've got a football one that's going alongside of our beautiful white can asset. So from a paid strategy, I'm not going to give away everything, but making sure we have like really hardworking assets that follow our social best practices that we've worked tirelessly on with our partners at Volt and at Meta is really important to us from a paid perspective.
Yeah, and on the organic side, we kind of want to balance being very relatable, culturally relevant, but then also kind of staying true to the brand, right? So if you think about Miller Lite is this huge, iconic brand which has done tons of stuff over the years. So almost the temptation is to like do too much. It's like Miller Lite could have an opinion on absolutely anything, but it really doesn't need to. And so that's why we work with something called like a social point of view, which gives us a lens, and we use that to filter opportunities as they come in, figure out, does this feel like the kind of thing that Miller Lite should be talking about? If so, like, what are they adding? How are they making this more entertaining? So we're not just adding more noise to what's already out there.
That's fantastic. Okay, so if you guys don't get this question right, shame on you from an audience standpoint, but I do have to do a little audience like call and response here. So What is the fastest growing ad format on Meta platforms? Reels, stories, or AR ads? This is where you answer. Thank you. Of course it's Reels. Next question, since I've warmed you up and like really gotten you ready for that. How many Reels are reshared by people every day? 100 million, over 2 billion, or so many that we've lost count? Okay, I heard a lot. So between B and C, the correct answer is over 2 billion. Reels are reshared over 2 billion times a day, which is almost too many to lose count, but not quite enough yet. So we're going to keep counting. Last question. Which of the following are considered Reels creative essentials? You guys have heard Meta talk about this quite a bit, so I'm going to go each one. Build with sound on, build vertical video, build in the safe zone, or D, all of the above? All of the above, that's right, of course it is. So if this is your first time hearing about creative essentials, that's okay. They're exactly what they sound like. These are best practices that we have in order to maximize the performance of Reels. And we'll, of course, talk more about that. But it's nice to see that most of you guys really have a solid grasp on Reels. So let's turn back to the Miller team and talk about their Reel strategy. So, Michelle, first I want to start by congratulating you. The work you've been doing on Miller Lite is, of course, phenomenal. It is so woohoo. It's so impressive to see how you commit to Reels in such a big way, and we really appreciate that. But tell us a little bit about what led you to the strategic decision you've made to lean into Reels. In particular, why this format and why this moment?
Yeah, so thank you for that lovely question. I mentioned before that we have a very clear commitment to our social platforms, and when there's something new to try, we're always the first ones to raise our hand. They're like, oh, let's go try this. We had built these beautiful social assets, and we've been using some of our story assets and just been putting them on Reels, and they didn't do any better, we'll say. So I think when your team reached out to us and wanted to do something, the team called the Reels Race, I was like, that sounds like a contest, I'm in. May I have some more information? So it was great because it gave us another opportunity to try something and an interesting way to connect with our drinkers and our followers and our consumers. And so the team we're in Chicago, and so they invited us over to the Meta office in Chicago, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Reels Race, but really it was like a giant collective of amazing brains in the room, from account to creative to media partners with brand and Volt and Meta. And we just spent the whole day talking about Reels and came out with some really great content that we were able to go and make with Rory's team.
Love it. So first, you gave a shout out to the Chicago office. There's a few other partners in here from the Meta Chi office, so at also my home office, where you guys are located as well. And then you talked about Reels Race, which we're so excited to see how you put that learning and that kind of in-depth session to practice. The goal of the program, as you noted, was to get the team thinking about how to use Reels as much more than just a placement, but to start building in that language of Reels. For us, Meta, this means creating content that's both relatable, entertaining, digestible, and of course feels really at home or native to the platform, so not at all disruptive. Rory, as we think about this, or as you think about this, and especially for a creative team, did that require a slightly different approach or a change in mindset for how you've typically worked in the past?
Yeah, I think the creative team had, again, shout out to the Chicago Meta team. It was an amazing day, and the creative team came back and were completely energized after this. And when I checked in with them the other day, they were like, well, there's two things that we still do every single day, which is super important to us. So one is about I always call it put the punchline first, right? So we think about when we're doing social creative, it's trying to be as entertaining as possible, and it helps me to think about it like a joke. So if you think about the traditional way to tell a joke is it's like set up here, set up here, set up here, set up here. Then you get to punchline and you're like, this is a funny bit, but you have to go like along this journey in order to get there, right? So imagine you're on social, maybe you get to about here before someone gets bored and then scrolls on and like isn't interested anymore. So this like great bit that you had, like no one is ever gonna see. So the meta team were great, and the way they talk about it is like getting that hook first, right? So this like super funny bit, like drag that to the front. People are gonna get it. People understand like what they're about to see. So that's a critical one, and I think we've got some examples to show where we'll see that. And the other one was around simplicity. So I think as people were going through ideas and storyboarding them out, like they handed out basically like 4 phone screens. So you had to come up with an idea, and within that concept, you had to say like, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and that is it, right? Like frame by frame, that's how tight you need to get this idea and how simple it is. If it goes further than that, or you need more explanation, people are not gonna get it and they aren't gonna care. So be brutal in the simplicity of your idea and the easiest way to tell it.
It's so interesting because you're talking about combating the itchy fingers that we have on social. Now, in my former life, I too came from a creative agency, so I'm always in awe of the process that you guys go through, from inspiration and ideation to storyboarding and, of course, those final results. So throughout this process, how do you make sure that your reels feel at home or native to the platform?
Yeah, so I think what we try and do is, so there's something that our Vault team does is like every morning everyone gets together and there's this thing we do called newsroom, which is kind of like an old school editorial meeting. Everyone has to show up with, these are things that are trending in culture, these are news events, and like a lot of the time, a lot of the things that get brought up are reels and new formats. So then what we try and do is like that social point of view that I was talking about earlier for Miller Lite, we apply that on top. And if an idea comes out, we're like, yes, this looks great, let's go ahead and do it. Then we start to kind of come together and like figure out an idea that works around that. If we get something great that works awesome, we try and like send that over to Michelle and the Miller Lite team. Try and get her to cackle over it. I'll get her to talk a bit more about that later. But yeah, that's generally how our process works.
Well, since you brought up the
There you
cackle,
go.
let's like
Tell them about it.
Yeah, so I mean, we've all sat, like, you know, when you're scrolling through, and especially like usually I get my reels time on the L on the way home when I'm commuting home. And you can watch people on the train or however they're commuting, like kind of going through, and you love to get a, and then like if you get yeah, but for me it is like a full belly cackle, and it is like aggressive, and it's probably best for the team that a lot of times for some reason our creative reviews will be on like work from home days because they have to go on mute, and like the all 3 of the like the especially the one, let's see, right, that far side. So these are people on our team that work for Volt, and they are like such wonderful brand stewards and faces of the brand, and I can't help it. And every time, like these ones, I'm like, I will just laugh out loud so aggressively that I'm like, well, we gotta go make it. And if it doesn't fit into like this moment or this time, like we have to find a way to go make this reel happen. So that's the cackle test. And actually, Rory and I were just doing a creative review right before we came in, and we have a winner. One definitely passed. It was they heard
Passed
me
Michelle
on. You
cackle
probably
test.
heard me.
Yes.
They heard me upstairs.
So a little birdie told me that the Miller Lite team has entire production days dedicated to creating reels, which sounds fantastic. I'm not sure that I've been invited yet, so we'll work on that. But you also mentioned that you use your own creative team to like feel right at home inside of the brand. So Michelle, maybe share with the audience why this model might be something that other brands should consider doing, and what are some of the benefits or even some of the challenges you've experienced by doing it this way, or actually for both of you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I can chat through the kind of the shooting process and kind of how that works. So as you'll see, like you get to know pretty quickly that like working in a corporate office and like shooting social content, it is not like the greatest backdrop for stuff. So it looks pretty bad, and you get to know all the corporate office pretty quickly. So what we try and do is like once we have some ideas which have like passed the cackle test, we'll try and treat the whole thing like a full production, right? So we will have like 4 or 5 ideas. We'll have a shot list. We'll have props. We'll have a location. Like the location might be the creative director's neighbor's backyard, as it is on that far example, but it's still like a location, right? So we try and like treat these like as much of like a big thing as possible, and then you like people get like a real kick out of filming this stuff, and you kind of see that come across in the creative, because you can see some team members in here, like the guy, like the baseball guy is called Nando, the guy with the glasses is Mike, and those two are kind of the faces of a lot of these, right? So they are probably the 2 best people at cracking a can of Miller Lite in the country. Like they get a noise out of the can, which is like hard to believe. And they're in a ton of these, like, and the only other thing I'd say about that is like, there's like a vulnerability attached to like being the face of a brand and like putting yourself out there. So we are always like very sensitive to like if they ever turn around and said like, hey, stop putting my face in these videos that go out to millions of people, we would say like, fine, just be a copywriter and keep coming up with the ideas and we'll figure it out.
So, Michelle, are there any key lessons that perhaps the wider team learned about how to make this process more efficient? I mean, I don't know that you can get more efficient than using your team, shooting actually in neighbors' backyards, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you found it.
I think that it was, so we were the first ones to do it, so it was great because we already called dibs on some of the talent on the second floor. And also I think the other reason that it works really well is, so Mike and Nando, who you saw in a lot of those videos, they also like represent who our drinker is, and it's not like it's not too aspirational, and it's just like they get it. Like they are a Miller Lite drinker, and that's really critical to it making sense. But I also think that one of the things that we can learn is like to trust, and like just it doesn't all have to, because we've gotten so good at making these like high performing like full production assets that are really expensive and are beautiful, and these are beautiful and they're different and they're like really connecting to our drinker and our consumer, so much so that like the one where we call Neighbors, which is the one shot in the backyard, is I got a note from Sophia on Rory's team, and they're like, hey, we just hit 1 million views on our organic reel. And I was like, this is the first one in the building to do so. And we're like, okay, how do we do that? And then it hit 2 million. They're like, we got to put paid behind this. And then it hit, and then now it's over, I think we're at like 3.5 million like organic views. And like, we have a decent sized social following, but that's a lot bigger than like our follower count is. And so the fact that we were able to connect with, like, I'm gonna say this 1,000,000 times, like finding a way to connect with your consumer and have them be seen, so much so that they're tagging their friends and resharing it in their stories, and really like calling out and be like, hey, that's like, like that was me 3 times this week. Like that's the space that we've been able to get into by like, not every single one of them is gonna do that. So you need to have some trust and like try some new things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, do a little dust of your
I
shoulders.
mean,
yeah, like,
I was very
really,
proud.
like-
We got stickers made and everything.
And I love the idea that lo-fi also still equals high craft. I think that's really important. Like those two things aren't opposed to one another. I want to move over to talk about measurement for a second, because of course we need to make sure that everything we do is effective. We know that once people see reels, they tend to take action, whether it's by following, messaging a brand, or actually buying a product that they see in reels, which is fantastic. That's what the power of reels do. So maybe can you share some insight into how some of your reels campaigns have performed and the types of actions that people have taken from engaging with them?
Yeah, I think I got a little ahead of myself on that last one. But yes, I think like we've taken a look at like what we've been able to accomplish in our like last, I mean, we really just started doing this summer. So it's been like quite a wild ride, and it's been working really well. So we're going to continue to push in this space, but we've been able to, surpass all the benchmarks that we have as a brand, and then also like ones across like the industry that we've gotten from your team, from things like ad recall and purchase intent and video view rate and click-throughs. And I think that is super, super important to us as we like move forward and like continue to build out what we do on organic social. But the real testament is to like people outside of our core group of brand fans seeing all of our content and having like giving them a reason to consider Miller Lite when like maybe that like they're just not thinking about us. Like people, you get served a billion ads a day, and if it's something that like you remember and it's worth sharing, or your friend sends it to you, like what a gift. What a gift of like someone sharing your brand's content, and then we put paid behind them and people were resharing and commenting on paid ads. We're like, I don't think I've ever commented, or I mean, I have reshared some ads before, but it's not an action that our like consumers really take. And so that's a big measure of success for us. And so we want to like, and now that we've hit all these benchmarks, we've like raised them. We're like, well, I guess we're gonna have to go like do more and make sure that everything we're doing is connecting to what our consumers want to see, and trying to pass the cackle test.
It's so interesting because you've covered so much. My next question was going to be, are there any results that you found surprising or that spurred you to take action in a different way, but perhaps you're like, I'm not sure what else, but we'll find it and we'll make sure to kind of do something with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's a fun, we like to test and learn things. And so the fact that we were able to, we have a very, very ruthless commitment to our like brand standards, and the fact that we, what we do on paid social, and we've been working on for years with your team, that we were able to like take a swing with Reels and find content that we wanted to put more paid behind, because we knew that if we just put like our regular assets in Reels like we had been, like it doesn't work. So being able to like test things in organic, and if they do, like if we see that engagement, then putting them into paid, and then continuing to like find different ways to connect with our drinkers. Was that like 47 times I've said that one? Just keeping track.
Did you guys get it?
Yeah. But I think that's the action that we've taken.
That's fantastic. So I know that obviously you have a pretty massive media mix there, and Reels is just a small part. But maybe share a little bit more, because this is Reels, so I'm going to just keep harping on this, about how Reels has moved the needle in just achieving your overall performance goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're actually tracking them from like from that standpoint, and doing things differently.
Yeah.
From what we saw over the summer, is just like the engagement rate. I think that's the one that we kind of like hold the closest, is making sure that what we're like the comments that we're getting, like, because most people don't want to comment on brand content, and most of the time they don't even watch it. So like just getting that has been huge. So from like a like short-term sales perspective, like we still have a while before we get all of those results back, but I'm very excited just to see like the level of engagement that we've had in the reel space. Plus like seeing like getting served your reel, like wild. Like I was like, I'm like still within the age demographic, like just like from like what we're trying to, where we're trying to grow. And so getting served your own ad is like kind of the best. So I think the algorithm knows me, but
it works.
Yeah.
It works, people. Maybe if you guys want to just give us an additional peek into the future, are there any other creative tools, and I'll start with you, Rory, or formats that you're excited to test for upcoming campaigns? I mean, ARMs, Reels, like anything else that's you're interested in?
I think kind of like across the portfolio, like we're really just trying to like make a connection with consumers, right? So like every time a new technology comes out and consumers are kind of reacting to it in a very kind of natural and authentic way, then we want to be trying that out, right? So we like to think that like nothing is ever off limits. If there's something interesting and it's resonating with people, like as a marketer, why wouldn't you want to try that as a new way to build a connection?
Anything else on that? Or
Yeah,
he
I
said
think,
it all.
I mean, Rory crushed it. I think the other thing is that you just have to make sure, like, whatever you're doing is, like, your brand has a reason or has a role, and making sure that, like, if to try new things, it's low risk to test some things, but if your drinker or your consumer is going to be like, that's not me, that's not Miller. Like, you just have to make sure that you can test and try things, but like also making sure that you are like staying true to the brand and giving your consumers like what they want to see is the most important.
So I've got one more question, but you've already like just dropped so many gems for this audience, so I'm not sure if you have any more, but what's the one thing that the marketers and advertisers in this room should start doing today, besides making a reel and cracking open a Miller Lite after this session? Anything else that you would like to like share with this wonderful audience today?
I can start. Just go viral. If you're gonna do that.
That
like,
small thing, just go viral.
Shout out to anyone who enjoyed those early 2010s briefs. I think you summed it up really nicely in terms of like lo-fi high craft, right? I think what I would say is try and take reels seriously. So there's a point at which you're thinking like social media creative can sometimes be like a bolt-on or an afterthought, but millions of people are watching these things. So it doesn't make any sense not to give the creative team time to come up with great ideas, let them shoot it where they want, how they want, and add that kind of like high craft part to the lo-fi.
Billions of people watch these things. Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
A wise
Not
person
only
once
watch,
told me.
engage with it. And you heard that from the creative, everyone. Michelle, anything else?
Well, I would have to shout out for like make sure you're doing the sound on, safe zones, and vertical. Make sure you're
That's right.
shooting it in all the right ways, and yeah, take it seriously. Don't just. I mean, you can reuse content that you shot for 16:9 for 9:16, or you could just go shoot the content for reels the way it should be, and try it out. Like, works for us, and we're a brand who's been around for a really long time. We have a very specific point of view and a very specific tone, and we were able to connect with our consumers really well with reels in a very real way.
Yes, I love all the reels.
Yeah.
So, first of all, thank you guys for being here with us today. Thank you for this fun chat. I hope the audience enjoyed it and for sharing some of your real secrets. I hope you guys took a lot of notes and maybe that you've discovered one new tactic to implement in your future campaigns. If nothing else, I'm going to repeat what Michelle said, what I said. Build in those creative essentials. That's 9:16 vertical video, sound on, and in the safe zones. Of course, we'd love to hear what you thought about this panel, so please be sure to scan this QR code. Oh, nope, hold on, let me get to the QR code. And if you want to learn more about Reel's creative strategies, we have many workshops. We have one tomorrow afternoon in the Insights Arena stage, titled Rev Up Your Performance, the Reels Creative Supercharger. I did this yesterday. Of course, I do it in my daily job, but I went through it yesterday. It is fantastic, so please make sure you check that out. And thank you again. Thank you both. And I cannot wait to see all of your reels flooding my timeline. It works. The algorithm works. It'll find you and find those opportunities to connect with your consumers. So thank you all.
Thanks, Bianca. Thanks, friends.